what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on internet radio. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
All right, and welcome back to another adventure here on Southern Sense. You're listening live. Actually, just go to our webpage, southernsense.net. You can watch and listen live, as well as onto Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, and everywhere else. So welcome. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, along with my co-host going, oh, God, can she ever get this dialogue straight and do it the same way each time, Curtis?
Of course, of course. It's another fine Navy day. It looks like I'm going to be joined by two other prior Navy personnel. So
yeah,
we're going to have some squid soup before it's all over.
We got joining us at the first half of the show, Typhoon Marin. We had him on a couple of weeks back. He's the Republican Florida Assembly Executive Vice President. He was also the 2016 Trump Florida Deputy State Grassroots Director. We also be joined by retired Navy Captain Tom Burbage. He's the president of the Calvert Task Group. And then you remember our friend from Heritage Foundation that used to join us all the time, Hannah Davis? She's now with fairus.org. She joined them last year and has been working extensively with them on immigration policy. She will be joining us. Hannah is back with us. So we got ourselves a really, really exciting and wonderful show going on today. And we've got a lot to talk about because in a few moments, RFK Jr. is going to take the stage. Now, I've got Newsmax on my phone playing. I've got the sound down, so it shouldn't interfere. But he should be taking the stage and then endorsing Donald Trump. This is what we're expecting. And I believe Trump is going to be taking the stage with him. So we're going to be following that as we do our broadcast. And we're going to be talking about certain issues, Curtis, that you brought up, dealing with military veteran benefits. Some things that happened with the VA that just weren't quite right. A lot of these guys that agreed for an early separation or separation package weren't aware and weren't being told at the time they were being separated that money had to be paid back. And for many, 30 years later, all of a sudden the bill is due and they had no idea this money had to be paid back. It's a heartbreaking story, and it affects thousands upon thousands of military veterans, especially those like you that retired in the 1990s when we had so many that we had to let people go early. Now we don't have enough.
Yeah.
I mean, you've gone from one end of the pendulum to the other. We're going to be talking about that, and we will be talking about the DNC convention and what we can expect going forward from here. So we got a lot to talk about, Curtis. I'm out of breath.
and let me clarify that a little bit. It has to be paid back if you are deemed disabled later on by the VA. So before you can get your VA benefits, you have to repay that separation pay, and that is something they never told you.
Exactly. You know, I'm lucky because I have a friend of mine, retired Marine Master Sergeant. He's now the financial officer at the base. And when these guys come up to him and ask him for, guidance, a little counseling on their retirement, he's telling them, each and every one, don't take the separation pay. Because if down the line, for whatever, you have a heart problem or you're exposed to something that you were unaware of at the time you retired, whether it's a 10% disability or 100% disability, before you can collect 1 penny of that disability, you've got to pay back that separation pay.
That's
and
true.
Something else we'll go into because there's legislation that's being sponsored, bipartisan, hasn't gotten out of committee yet, but they're saying that your disability pay can never exceed that of what your retirement pension is. That doesn't make sense. That does not make sense because I retired out of the police department. My disability pension is higher than what my actual pension would have been. Had I retired, it would have been 50% for just regular retirement. But because I was disabled in the line of duty, they deemed that I went above and beyond and I deserved extra. Why doesn't the military do that?
I don't know. This is the first I've been hearing of this this bill. I'd like to know who sponsored it.
Oh, I've got all that stuff right here, and we'll go into it with our guests as they come in on the line. And those that listen to the show know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going to fellow NYPD officer, Detective Jonathan Diller. His end of watch was Monday, March 25th of 2024. And let me pull up his dedication, and here we go.
Honoring a hero tonight, hundreds of police officers stand shoulder to shoulder in their grief as the body of Officer Jonathan Diller arrives at a funeral home on Long Island. An NYPD escort led the dignified transfer from Lower Manhattan. It was a somber day for New York's finest. A day after Officer Diller was shot and killed in the line of duty. His family prepares now for a funeral. CBS 2's Naveen Dhaliwal reports from Massapequa Park.
The body of Officer Diller is now at this funeral home in the town where he lived, and so many came out to pay their respects for their hometown hero. Brothers and sisters in blue stood silently outside the Massapequa funeral home, watching a fallen hero, Officer Jonathan Diller, being brought back home.
It's heartbreaking. It's one of your own. And he's out there doing his job.
The community in mourning, left with heavy hearts. Christina Adams' brother is a police officer.
I have no words. I have no words. Brings tears and shaken up.
Flags are lowered as grief set in on the block where the 31-year-old officer and his young wife were raising a baby boy.
It's very unfair, okay, so the police officers who go out there every day to work and then they end up giving up their life.
The nightmare unfolded Monday afternoon in Far Rockaway as Officer Diller, who was with the NYPD for 3 years and worked with the department's Queens Community Response Team, was gunned down during what police describe as a traffic stop.
They approached the gentleman and asked him to step out. In 3 to 5 seconds, shots was fired. The officer was hit. The perp was on the ground.
Cell phone video shows Officer Diller's partner distraught after the shots were fired and other officers rushing the wounded officer into a vehicle headed to the hospital where he died.
Parents should never have to bury their children. There's nothing natural about that. And watching his wife, she's just holding on, just, hoping not to hear those words come back. For this hero who moved into a community of first responders, there's an outpouring of love.
We're here for one another. It's just a big extended family, and all hearts pour out just for the fellow NYPD family, his extended family, the tragic loss.
Tomorrow evening, a candlelight vigil is planned for Officer Diller at Brady Park here in Massapequa Park. It's a moment for the community to come together once again to remember their hometown hero. In Massapequa Park, Naveen Dhaliwal, CBS 2 News.
We're also learning more tonight about the man suspected of shooting Officer Diller. The suspect is still in Jamaica Hospital and is expected to survive. Police sources tell us he has been arrested 16 other times, and another person who was driving the car is still being held by police. It's not clear, though, if that person will face charges. The wake for Officer Diller is set for this Thursday and Friday at the Massapequa Funeral Home. The funeral mass is scheduled Saturday at 10:30 a.m. at the St. Rose of Lima Church, also in Massapequa. Do stay with CBS 2 for our continuing coverage of the investigation into Officer Diller's death. You can find all of our stories online at cbsnewyork.com.
I wanted to do something with his life that he could be proud of.
Remembering the man who gave his life to protect New York City, tonight, Officer Jonathan Diller's former partner speaks only with CBS 2. Good evening, I'm Dick Brennan. Maurice and Christine are off. Hundreds waited in the rain tonight to pay respects to fallen NYPD officer Jonathan Diller at his wake in Massapequa. CBS 2's Allie Bauman shows us how the husband and father is being remembered.
Hours before NYPD officer Jonathan Diller was shot and killed on the job in Queens Monday, he shared a laugh with Officer John Groves.
Every time you hung up the phone with him, it was, "I love you, bye." And if you didn't say it back, he was calling you. And then it's just, you pick up the phone and he was like, "All right, I love you, John, bye."
Groves had been Diller's partner in the 105 precinct for 2 years.
He was so incredibly brave about going to work, loving his wife and his son, that nothing, like, you couldn't stop him from doing anything that he wanted to do.
The 31-year-old officer leaves behind a wife and their 1-year-old son.
It's the most tragic loss, and I couldn't imagine. None of us could imagine it. And I don't think it's really hit any of us either. It's just like such a huge loss. He was such a light.
Officer Groves and his wife were among the hundreds of people who lined up in the rain Thursday for Diller's wake in Massapequa Park. Included in the crowd, former President Donald Trump, who paid respects to NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban and the Diller family.
The police are the greatest people we have. There's nothing and there's nobody like them, and this should never happen.
New Yorkers will remember Officer Diller as a hero. Groves says his former partner decided to become a cop so he could do something to be proud of.
He was very happy to be a cop, and beyond happy to be a father. He's just the happiest guy.
People are supporting Officer Diller's family in all different ways. A GoFundMe for the family has raised more than $500,000. Tunnel to Towers is paying off their home mortgage, and the New York Police and Fire Widows Fund is donating $50,000. In Massapequa Park, Long Island, Allie Bauman, CBS 2 News.
Officer Diller's wake continues tomorrow, followed by a funeral on Saturday. We'll bring you coverage of the tributes here on CBS 2 and streaming on CBS News New York. And today, the accused killer of Officer Diller, Guy Rivera, was arraigned on charges of first-degree murder and attempted murder. Rivera is still in the hospital and will remain in custody. He's scheduled back in court tomorrow. If convicted, he would face life without parole in prison.
It's hard to imagine how long I have to wait to see Jonathan again. When the doors to heaven open for me one day, I hope to see Jonathan standing there looking at me just like he did on our wedding day. My husband died a hero, but he also lived as one. Our world will never be the same, but I know I speak for everyone when I say I could not be more proud of him. It's been 2 years and 2 months since Detective Rivera and Detective Mora made the ultimate sacrifice, just like my husband, Jonathan Diller. Dominique Rivera stood in front of all the elected officials present today pleading for change. That change never came, and now my son will grow up without his father. I will grow old without my husband, and his parents have to say goodbye to their child. How many more police officers and how many more families need to make the ultimate sacrifice before we start protecting them? I don't wish this kind of pain on anyone. Jonathan lived his life doing good for people, and it's now time for people to do good for all the officers he represents.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold fast shore. When our time has come, we gave them hope. We made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah. We led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation. For all the next generation. Let it be said. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother. Oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation. For all the next generation.
All right, and we're back. That was Tiffany, Soul of a Nation. And you can find her up on Spotify and all the other places. Just key in Tiffany and the song Soul of the Nation. It'll always pop up. Curtis, you need to turn your light back on.
It's on.
Anyway, I'm watching on one screen. You keep on seeing me turn my head. I've got Newsmax up, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is currently speaking. He's thanking all the people that helped him with his campaign and brought him this far, all the people that gave tirelessly and selflessly. So I assume I'm just going to keep one eye over there. Watching the DNC, I got to say, not everyone is swallowing the Kool-Aid because during, I think it was on Wednesday, CNN Scott Jennings pulled out, said, wait a minute. You guys are going a little bit too far in these lies about Trump. There was this congresswoman, what the heck was her name? I don't have her name. What the heck was it? Anyway, she pulled out this big book. I mean, it was huge. It was like almost 2.5 feet in just height alone. And she said that was Project 2025. No, it was just a prop that she brought up onto the podium. And she was saying that this was all Trump's doing and so on and so forth. He's 100% behind it. I'm sorry, folks. I got to admit, this guy at CNN, Scott Jennings, called it out for what it was, a huge, fat lie. Heritage Foundation, which some people call an extreme right, weird, crazy think tank. No, they're not. They're college professors and economists. Yeah, they're not fringe. They're not there to turn the country upside down. And this Project 2025 is what they did was they sent a bunch of these experts down and they went department by department through the federal government and said, well, if you were to head this department, what would you do to streamline it, make it more efficient, or do you feel it should be eliminated? And that's what they put together. Just basically a playbook on how to make our government work smaller and more efficiently.
Well,
they weren't saying that we're going to put someone in charge of political attacks.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted a nonpartisan effort to say we can streamline government down and make it work more efficiently under the next administration.
The left has been great masters, matter of fact, at labeling our side. I mean, for decades, they have been calling the John Birch Society a racist, right-wing organization, which isn't true. I've been hearing that since I was little. So I'm not surprised that they are still, calling certain aspects of our movement radical and dangerous and anti-American. I mean, they got the nerve to speak.
Well, it's finally come across to a lot of the media, like such as CNN. I got to applaud them for actually being honest and saying, "Hey, listen, no, a lot of the stuff you're saying out there are just blatant lies." I had this. I use this on a show I do on Wednesday, and it was listing how many times, and I didn't keep it. Shoot, I did not keep it. How many times they mentioned Trump compared to how many times they mentioned the border. And you're looking like about 170 times to maybe 7. I mean, crime and the economy was way down low on the totem pole. But attack the Republicans on their stance for bringing abortion rights or abortion rights back down to the state. Roe v. Wade should never have been in the Supreme Court. It should have been sent back down to the state. So what they did was by by SCOTUS doing Roe v. Wade. I am having a brain fart here. Their ruling, their decision on Roe v. Wade back then in the 70s, they were making legislation. And that's not the point of the Supreme Court. That was something that should be a state's right to decide. And if my state is more conservative than another state more liberal, then that's how the founding fathers wanted it originally. And that's how it's meant to be. But they're making it sound like, we're trying to federalize all this. And it's not. And it was lie after lie after lie. And I have to say, Scott Jennings at CNN called it for exactly what it is. And it's good to see someone on the left to be finally honest. We've got our first of 2 guests, and he caught me right smack in the middle of a rant. Retired Navy Captain Tom Burbage. He is the president of the Calvert Task Group. Now, what is the the teeth in straight Calvert Task Group? Say that 3 times fast. Exactly and I've got a retired Navy guy here with me too.
Oh, great. It was good to meet you too.
Hey, Tom.
Connect some dots from the past if we had time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Ann, thanks for having me, first of all. And the Calvert Group is kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of guys who served on active duty. Most of us are Naval Academy graduates. We sort of woke up from our retirement lifestyle of playing golf now and then and chasing grandkids to plug ourselves into what's going on with the country. It sort of started with the Naval Academy. There were some things that concerned us. We all are at the time of our life where we have children or grandchildren that are looking at a military career. And we're finding it's hard to get that mindset into the youth of today. So that was a concern. And we saw some things going on at the Naval Academy that concerned us, mostly related to the DEI, critical race theory, sort of separation instead of unity. And it's important in the Navy, in any service, that unity is the byword. You operate as from the smallest units of a squad all the way up to a squadron to a wing, whatever it is. You operate as a group. So we came off the golf course and, basically decided to get engaged. This was about 2020. And we called ourselves the Calvert Group at the time because none of us could remember everybody's email. And so we just had a block email called the Calvert Group. So we brought that name with us. Admiral Jim Calvert was the superintendent at the Naval Academy when we were midshipmen. Mm-hmm. Some of the guys in the group served under him. He's a famous Navy officer, first guy to service a submarine at the North Pole. Lots of interesting career highlights. And we contacted his family and said, hey, we may be in the public eye a little bit now. So is it okay if we continue to use his name and his legacy as part of our DNA? And they agreed, let's do that. So that's who the Calvert Group started out as. And since then, we've become more engaged with other similar like-minded organizations.
Now, you've got a book out there, Don't Give Up the Ship. Let me see if I can get the full name correct. I have got notes shoved all over the place. I have to apologize. I got Newsmax up on one screen because I'm watching Robert F. Kennedy with his addressing the public about whether or not he's going to endorse Donald Trump. So I got one eye on there as he's doing that. Anyway, it's Don't Give Up the Ship. Woke politics are endangering our military and our nation, which the Calvert Task Group published. Tell us about this.
Well, it's a book. We've all been writing editorials, essays, op-eds, opinions. Most of them have been published, but they're sort of one-off. News has a cycle of 48 hours to 96 hours. You write an article, people read it, they don't remember it. So we decided that they were worth putting together in a volume. And it's kind of like a time legacy from 2021 to today. And the course that the nation is on and has been very concerning to us and to most veterans, and particularly its impact on the military. We published a book. It's called Don't Give Up the Ship. It's a very comprehensive set of articles, fairly thick book, but we think it tells the story pretty well on what we're about and what we're trying to do. And the book also gives us a launching platform to talk to people like you, Ann, and others, because interest in a book allows you to come onto the broader network of podcasts. So we genuinely appreciate you having us. You're one of the first. The book is out in pre-order right now, and it'll be out for good in about 2 weeks.
Well, I've got the press copy. I only got it yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to go and delve into it. So I am going to bring you back at a later date after I go through it all, probably in a couple of weeks. But you mentioned about wokeness in the military, and it's something that I've been talking about all along. I'm a child of the bicentennial. Back in '75, the Navy was trying to recruit me for a officer candidate school. And we just, in the '70s, you're just out of Vietnam and blah, blah, blah. And I just didn't feel temperament for it. So I chose a different path. And I watched what was going on. And the recruiter was heavy after me because there wasn't a lot of women, especially female officers.
Right.
Right. And I said, all right, fine. I can understand that. But what is it you're expecting women to do? And as I'm watching over all these decades, now they're talking about drafting women, women in combat positions. And it went from that conversation now to transgenderism. And to me, that's a danger. That's a huge danger in the battlefield. I can see the excuses, well, the woman has to have her monthly cycle, or if she's got kids or things like that. The military always made allowances for that. But when you put someone that needs constant medical attention and surgeries and psychological services because they're going through this transition, or they have already transitioned, but they still need lifelong care, how do you put them in a combat situation?
I think you're seeing some statistics currently that reflect why that's been a very difficult challenge. For the Navy, there's about 18,000 short in terms of recruiting for seagoing type billets. Well, that means the ships don't go fully manned or the ships don't go at all. And we're in a time when the Pacific and maritime risk is the highest I've seen in my lifetime. So you're right. You have recruiting issues, you have retention issues for the folks that are tired of having their bandwidth used up by things that aren't necessarily related to leadership and warfighting activity. All those statistics are coming up. The bottom line is readiness. So it's recruiting, retention, and readiness. If you look at those three things, we're not doing so good right now. Which is why.
When you're looking in the Middle East, the ships in the Middle East and in Asia that are defending our nation are not majority naval vessels. They are Coast Guard. Now, you think Coast Guard, you're thinking just off the coast of the United States. But no, we're actually sending them into international waters to do what the Navy should be doing, because the Navy has scuttled so many ships and not building them. I mean, I'm watching Kamala Harris going, I'll make this military the strongest, when it's under the Obama administration and the Biden administration, it has grown the weakest.
Well, that's one of our concerns is when's the last time you saw a list of priorities that included stronger defense or a stronger Navy or stronger military? The concerns of the nation are in many other different areas now. I was talking to my neighbor who's a Navy Reserve dentist, and he took his daughter out at the local school in our neighborhood to homeschool her. She's in 6th grade because of the transgenderism that's being forced on kids at that age in the school. There's just lots of issues, and the military is the last part of our society that needs to be going down social engineering.
Exactly.
It is required for defense of our constitutional republic. It's built on a whole different set of rules and regulations than civilian life and society in general, and yet it's being sort of pushed into the petri dish for social experimentation.
Well, we saw underneath the Obama, I can't even say that. I'm going to say abomination, Obama administration, the massive retirement and separation of senior officers that were old school. And now you bring in the DEI program, which has now led into all this other stuff that we're seeing. I'm sorry. The purpose of the military is to destroy things and to defend the nation. And that's the purpose. That's the main priority purpose. Diversity, equity, inclusion does not fall into that picture. If you can't do your job and be shoulder to shoulder with me in the battlefield, you don't belong in the battlefield. If you cannot command the men and women under your troops because you're hiding in your tent, you don't belong in the battlefield. But they're allowing this to happen. And I fear for the safety. Look what we had with Afghanistan, the withdrawal from that debacle. And the last thing you should have done was give up that base. Should never have given up that base.
Exactly right. Exactly right. You don't have to be a military historian to know those kinds of things. Chief, did you want to add something?
Yeah, go ahead, Curtis.
Yeah, I was going to say you're right. And one of the reasons why there's a deficiency in our recruitment, especially in the Navy, is because of the fact that the schools do not teach patriotism anymore. Most of these young people are taught that our country is behind most of the grief in the world today. So who wants to support something like that? And then you have those who are more astute on what's going on, and their parents have encouraged them not to join the military under this administration because they're afraid that we will be at war and they're going to lose their sons and daughters under this administration. So we have to get back to a point where we as a nation has a strong military and a strong military civilian leader.
I think you're exactly right. You know, if you look at they throw the word democracy around a lot these days and all these conventional speeches, but we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic.
Republic.
You took one, you took an oath, I took an oath, we all took an oath to defend that Constitution. And the three primary things to do that are a strong defense of free and fair elections and equal justice under the law. And we're not doing too good in all three of those right now.
Not at all.
You know, there's so much to say for that. And the oddest thing is they made so many men and women separate because they wouldn't take the jab. Now they're saying because we can't recruit, we're going to welcome you back. Or are you going to do that with back pay? I know the Navy is. Yeah. Whether or not other branches will do so, I'm just hoping they will. I have a friend of mine. His son was over here in Paris Island, and because of Thanksgiving, he was by himself, and his father was living out of the country. I went down to the base. I picked him up, brought him over here to the house to have Thanksgiving dinner with me. He went out to the stumps. He was serving out there, became a sergeant. Next thing you know, the jab is here, and he goes, I'm out of here. I'm going to the National Guard of Wisconsin. Yeah. I mean, it was dumb. You spend all this money to bring these men and women and train them, and then for something stupid political like that?
The ultimate example of that was one of my other compatriots in the Calvert group, and I went to Little Creek, and we met with a couple of the SEALs that didn't want to take it for religious reasons. They had already, I mean, sitting there talking to these four young men, any one of them, you would have gladly had your daughter date and marry. They were the epitome of U.S., of America. They were pulling weeds at the BOQ, waiting for somebody to make a decision on whether they were going to throw them out of the Navy or what. They didn't know what. They were just in a holding tank. They'd already been deployed in combat situations in Somalia and Iraq. These were experienced, highly trained young men, that were basically serving out their time. They weren't going to go back in after being treated like that. So it was a big issue. But the whole thing around COVID was a big issue in many ways, not the least of which is affecting the candidate pool for recruiting. for officers and for leadership. They were not allowing military recruiters in some schools even. So there was all kinds of reasons why, the candidate pool has been very restricted for a number of reasons, not the least of which is what Chief mentioned about parents. And I'm fourth generation. I'm second generation of 4 Naval Academy graduates and naval aviators. My 5th generation grandson couldn't get in. He was qualified by every measure that I could tell. So there's a whole admissions process. It's really a microcosm of the national problem. When you look at a surface academy, you got 4 years to bring somebody in from a candidate pool that's gotten pretty weak, convert them into the officer leadership corps of the future, and have them go out and lead men and women in dangerous situations. That's a transformational process that requires concentration.
Well, I've got a funny story to tell you because my neighbor is a retired master sergeant, and he went back as a civilian to be their financial officer at the local base. And there was an officer called, and his guys were being deployed, and he was asking for all these extra little things for deployment. And he says, well, I can't do that. And he started explaining how the appropriations went, and says, you can't do that because if you're going to vouch for what you want to do for them, you're going to be responsible for that bill. Now, I know when I send it in, they're going to deny it, and you personally are going to have to pay for that. And all of a sudden, the officer's going, oh, well, maybe. So he turns around to the enlisted guys. He goes, officers aren't always smart. But it makes you wonder, coming out of this wokeness pool, the DEI pool, is if this is what they're recruiting to become officers, rather than looking at the enlisted man that has the experience in the field and have them go through officer candidate school and then make them. They're battle hardened, they know.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Exactly right. There's just a lot of those kind of issues that are out there that have weakened our position, as a defense, national defense, and then you further break that down into by service or by service academy. There's very similar groups like mine, even larger, that are doing the same kind of thing at the Air Force Academy and at West Point, because it's a matter of incentives in my mind. It's what are your leaders incentivized to do? In the past, it was all meritocracy and performance-based. And when you went to sea, you'd willing to work 15 hours a day on a flight deck of a carrier, which many of us did. Now the incentives are to support this movement towards the DEI infusion into the military, like all the other government institutions. It wasn't an overnight sensation. It started 10, 12 years ago, 2010, 2011, when these groups were stood up. But we found a lot of our appeal when we go in and see the leaders in these various organizations is, tell me I'm wrong. Show me that I'm wrong. Show me that the feedback we're getting from people is not correct. And we haven't found it yet.
Yeah. Well, Curtis, you served, I believe, on the Teddy Roosevelt during Desert Storm, right?
USS Saratoga.
Oh, Saratoga.
I served on the Nimitz and the Saratoga.
Wow.
I was Forstall at Eisenhower, and my father was the commanding officer of the Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Wow. I went on a 2-week debt on the Roosevelt. The Ike. Yeah.
Well, listen, we wanted to have Lou Marin on. I don't know what happened. Maybe he fell asleep. I think it's nap time.
I just texted him, so hopefully we'll hear from him.
Hopefully we'll hear from him, because one of the things I want to discuss, because I sometimes work with Concerned Veterans for America. I have them on the show, but I also still run a tea party now, 15 years running, and I have them come at the meetings too. So veterans issues are really a high priority. I'm the daughter of a World War II veteran. But something Curtis brought to my attention is that a lot of these guys, especially in the 90s, got their separation pay. It was an incentive to get them to separate because you had so many men and women there. So they get out on the military benefits. Later on, they get diagnosed with some sort of a disability, and they end up applying for the disability. What they don't tell them at the time of their separation is that if you do apply for disability, you have to pay that separation pay back. And now, 30 years down the road, people are getting hit bills with $30,000, $39,000 They're having their military retirement pay halted until that amount is paid back. So a lot of them are living there without anything coming in except maybe Social Security. And that's not right for the men and women that served and also have the VA decide they're going to enforce a law that they haven't enforced for over 3 or 4 decades.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of things going on these days that are not right for the veteran community. You know, you look at where the migration folks are being put up and where the veterans are not being addressed, whether it's homelessness or medical issues. You know, we've got our priorities and our value system askew right now, and I hope there's a path forward that will get us back on track.
I do, because if you're looking at 21 to 22 veterans a day committing suicide, we're letting them down. When you have far more homelessness that are veterans, including female veterans now living on the street that you never saw before, and instead we're housing illegal aliens, we've got a problem with this nation. When we're turning around to the men and women that find themselves disabled and being told that, yeah, we'll give you VA benefits and military disability, but it can't exceed what your normal pension would have been had you retired at 20 years. There's a problem there.
Yeah, there is a problem, and I don't know how you fix it. You know, there's veterans now in Congress, probably more with Iraq and Afghanistan and the more recent events, more than there has been in the past. And there's some really excellent candidates running for Congress, whether it's the Senate or the House. I just hope we can get more of that veteran viewpoint and perspective in our lawmaking group.
Well, it's my understanding that the separation pay debacle originated in Congress after the Gulf War, Desert Storm. You know, there was a big buildup to Desert Storm with Desert Shield and everything.
Right.
So after we defeated Saddam, they decided to downsize the military. And of course, getting out, you know, getting people out, they offer an incentive, and that was, you know, the separation pay. And it depended on what your rank was, time in service and things like that. Some people got a couple thousand. Some people got up to 50, 60,000. And at the time, they didn't tell these folks that should you later be deemed disabled by the VA, you will have to pay that back because of the fact that the military was looking upon this as double dipping and had nothing to do with double dipping. Double dipping is like if you work at the State Department for 20 years, retire, and then you go work for the post office, which is under the federal government, for 20 years and retire. That's double dipping. Separation pay had nothing to do with that. Yet they treated it as such. So they're coming after people, and I mean, really, they've been coming after people as early as 1996 when they started finding this out. But later on, they started telling people that, hey, you know, if you get this, you know, you may have to pay it back. But they didn't do that originally. Mm-hmm. And it's not overpayment. It's money that they offer, and the veteran took in good faith. And those who had this taken from them, they should have been reimbursed. I mean, they're talking about forgiving student debt. They're giving all this money to illegals who did nothing for this country. Yet we have veterans who were like given something, offered something. They took it in good faith. And then later on, the government took it back, you know, and it's just not fair. And for some of them to try to repay this, it could take anywhere from 10 to 18 years. And most of them won't even live maybe 5 or 6 years beyond that. So it's up to the Congress to change this.
I agree. You know, I think there ought to be some kind of a focus on the strength of the defense organization in our country coming out of this election. And I'm not confident that that's going to happen, but we need a strong defense and a strong service now more than we ever did. And part of that is showing that you take care of the ones that sacrificed before you.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure it's these same veterans that got screwed over are telling their relatives, "Don't bother about going in. You're gonna get screwed over."
that is part of the problem on the recruiting side. It sure is.
That definitely is. But there was a bill that was put together by Montana Democratic Senator John Tester, and he's on the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and Representative Gus Bilirakis of Florida. And they put together something called the Major Richard Starr Act, a bill that was supported in the last Congress by more than 335 House members and 66 senators, but failed to pass after they turned their attention to the $280 billion PACT Act, which expanded VA healthcare. This was a priority where there's ensuring that they don't collect more. Well, what they were saying is that veterans were medically retired and served less than 20 years, or those with lower disabilities are subject to offsets, ensuring that they don't collect more each month than their military retirement pay. And they were looking to make it where, hey, they should get the disability and they shouldn't be restricted to what the amount is based upon their retirement pay, but based upon their actual disability. And that makes sense.
But that didn't pass, right?
No, it hasn't passed. So it's been sitting there in committee, and hopefully with the new Congress coming in, we get a more favorable Congress and we can see and get it passed. And then fix this other problem with the VA coming back after the separation.
Yeah, I agree. One of the guys in our group used to be a deputy in the VA, and he's an Agent Orange victim. You know, he was a Marine in Vietnam and suffered terribly over his adult life. But he's in there fighting, but there's not many fighting with him.
No, I've lost a friend to Agent Orange, and it was a slow, painful death for him, and he never got benefits. Because at that point, Agent Orange wasn't officially recognized.
Right.
And it's a little bit too late for him now. When I first started doing this show 15 years ago, there was another one, Sergeant Dave Davis. Again, Vietnam veteran, Agent Orange victim. He passed before it ever came to fruition. It was about maybe a year later, they finally recognized Agent Orange, but not in time to save his life. Or how many hundreds of thousands have lost their lives because government has been slow to react to veteran needs.
Yeah, and part of that was we went through about a decade or more where we had only one or two veterans in all of Congress. So like I say, that number's going up now because of the recent experience that some of the folks have had. But it's hard to get attention on an issue if you don't have some strength in the people that are debating the issues.
Yeah. Now it is official. RFK Jr. has endorsed Donald Trump. He just got off the stage.
Good.
So let's hope that it'll turn the things around, because when I was watching that convention, I was just shaking my head going, I mean, what planet are these people?
It's hard to watch sometimes. You know, it's hard to know where truth is these days. You know, there's so many allegations being thrown around by both sides, but you know, you've got to scrape the surface and peel the onion and understand the issues and vote according to what you want to be the outcome of the issues, not vote on personalities. And, you know, it's hard because the general voting public now deals in sound bites. They don't deal in depth of knowledge. You know, it's a difficult time.
Yes. Now, I sent a message over to Lou, and you sent him a message, and he's not responding. I think he took a nap.
Well, he did respond to me. He said he's running a little late.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to go into the weeds here because Tim Walz has been nominated. He is now the vice presidential candidate. And the more we delve into his background, the more I'm thinking, what the heck are you thinking about getting this man? And I hear the term stolen valor, where he retired and claimed a rank that he was not officially retired at.
Well, I can give you my interpretation of that whole story. And again, it's difficult sometimes to understand exactly what happened because the facts get so distorted. He was an enlisted Army. And I think if he did anything wrong, it was he manipulated his military experience for political gain. I don't think if you look up the definition of stolen valor, that actually qualifies as stolen valor. Stolen valor is I consider, I tell people won an award for bravery or valor. They didn't really win it. But there was an act, the Stolen Valor Act of 2005 that was passed 20 years ago said it was a misdemeanor to wear the uniform if you weren't actually in a uniform service. That was overturned by the Supreme Court under freedom of speech. If you didn't have anything criminal in mind, but you were wearing a uniform, well, we'll look the other way. In 2013, they passed the second Stolen Valor Act, and that's the one that said that if you assume that the identity of someone who's won a Valor medal or that now becomes a felony, I think. But I don't think he really did it. Well, I think what he did, he actually achieved, my understanding is he achieved that rank, but then he reverted one rank when he retired because he retired early. And there's a lot of people that manipulate their military careers, particularly reservists that are in the political world. So yes, it was wrong. And I think he did. I think it's an egregious offense in the eyes of veterans like myself and Curtis. And it's an egregious offense in the eye of Gold Star families. And anybody who's been around the military just doesn't want to tolerate that. But I think we're in such a minority now that it's like the old saying, it's a mud ball on the side of the Pentagon. It'll dry up and fall off in a couple of days. What's really important is that the bigger issues of what's happening with support for the military and support for the services becomes a national concern. That's where the national military issues really are. It's the strength of the military.
Yeah, my understanding is that he decided to retire before his unit was shipped overseas.
Right.
His reasoning was, I want to run for Congress, and a lot of people thought he was taking the easy way out, and that's the problem they had with this guy. He avoided going overseas when his unit,
Well, you guys have been deployed. The word goes down the pike, hey, we're going to be deployed even before the orders are cut.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're told orders are being cut. So just before you receive the actual orders, that's when you decide to retire, which is what, as I understand, he did. He knew it was coming. He knew the orders were being cut, and he cut bait. He fled. I'm sorry. He abandoned his command. There's no other way to explain it. And he left the guy right behind him, stuck with the whole thing. And the guy behind him said, I'm not leaving these men and women behind. I'm standing behind them. I'm going with them. And he did.
Which is what most people would do in that situation. Now, I'm not at all standing up for what he did. I'm only saying that I don't think it qualifies as stolen valor.
No,
he didn't say he won a Medal of Honor. He didn't say he won an air cross. What he did was he manipulated at the end of his reserve duty for political gain.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a crime or not? I don't know. But
no, but it goes to show to his personal.
So that you just hit it on the head. That shows that there's a vetting issue. If you're vetting candidates for these very senior elected positions, you want to understand that's part of the background, and it shouldn't be a surprise.
So if he abandoned his post in the military, look what he did to the state of Michigan during the riots. He did nothing for 3 days. He abandoned his post until the cry was so loud, until a police precinct in Minneapolis had to evacuate because they were being rushed.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we are, I believe, raising a different breed of men today, if you want to call them men. Because if you look back, even in the Democrat Party, you look at the Kennedys, John, Robert, Edward, they all wanted to get into the military, even the older brother that got killed, because they wanted to be heroes or serve their country. And most, the older brother died, Joe Kennedy Jr. And but they didn't run from the war scene, They decided to run for Congress and stuff like that when they got out after they served overseas.
Right.
Today we got people that just don't want to go.
Well, we're down to our last few minutes because I got my next guest up in the studio here. Where can people find the book that you have, Don't Give Up the Ship, and where can they communicate with you if they want to know more about the Calvert Group? If there's Navy guys or Marines out there that want to give you assistance.
We have a website that's thecalvertgroup.org, which has everything that we're trying to do laid out there. The book itself will be on Amazon and other distributors that you can find. It's easy to find.
Do you have a release date yet?
It's the official release date is September 17th, but the hard copy we have hard copy, soft copy, and Kindle, and they're out now. I have a shipment coming to my house. It should be here any day.
Oh, I get an autographed copy.
I will, if you give me a mailing address, and also Curtis, if you'd like one, I'll mail one with a signed signature on it. Both of you, if you will just text me your.
I'm so shameless.
No, that's why we're not doing this to make money.
Yeah.
Just because we want to be part of this.
Hey, put in there, go Navy.
You can count on that.
Well, Tom, I'm sorry that Typhoon Lou Marin could not join us, so we'll have to have you back again just before your official release date. It'll give me plenty of time because our next opening isn't until mid-September. That's how far advanced we are in booking. And God bless you for hopping on last minute. Because we were supposed to have Captain Wells over, and Captain Wells had to back out last second too. So thank you so much. Thank you for all the hard work you do, and we'll be talking.
That'd be great, and I appreciate you having me on, and it's great to meet you, Curtis. We'll have to connect more dots when we get a chance.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right, check him out. His book is at the Calvert Group. .org. And let's bring in our friend formerly with the Heritage Foundation and now with fairus.org, our buddy Hannah Davis, which I had the pleasure of meeting. Oh God, is it almost 2 years ago now?
I think it was about a year ago now. Yeah, up in DC. Thanks for having me back.
I think it was actually 2 years ago because I got married in December.
Oh, then you know more than me.
Hello, Hannah.
Hi, how are you?
Oh man. Right. Did you watch any of that convention at all?
No, I didn't want to give them views. I saw some snips.
Oh, geez. I mean, I was yelling at the screen, especially yesterday. And I know it's an expensive, big TV that my husband brought into the marriage. And I wanted to throw something at it. It's like, no, that's going to cause a divorce real fast. No, we're not going to do that. So I didn't.
That's probably sound.
But you've got a couple of great articles up on fairus.org, which is the website, and it's a Federation for American Immigration Reform. And boy, what the Obama administration has done and what the Biden administration has done, it's mind-boggling how bad it has gotten.
Yeah.
To the point where we now have sanctuary states. What is going on with Maryland Governor Wes Moore? You wrote a great article about that.
Yeah, he likes to tout that Maryland can't control its sanctuary statuses or can't control the differences in the counties and what they do, or even the city jurisdictions and what they do because of federal law. And it's just simply not true. Sometimes, he seems to be really squishy on the topic. Sometimes he says that, they're not a sanctuary city supporting state. And then sometimes he says, well, I can't control what Prince George County does, and I can't control what Annapolis is doing. But he never really gets to the heart of the issue, the root causes of the issue. And it's the fact that Maryland allows incentivizing policies that I think personally create them to be a sanctuary state as a whole. I don't think that it's county by county. I think the state of Maryland as a whole is a sanctuary. They give driver's license to illegal aliens and state tuition. They help reimburse for their legal funds when they're getting immigration lawyers, that kind of thing. They certainly don't cooperate with ICE. They don't adhere to federal law, even though it mandates that they do let ICE know if they've arrested someone who happens to be in the country illegally. They don't contact ICE first by any means. And if ICE contacts them, they simply tell them that their hands are tied. They've already released the alien and there's nothing they're going to do. So, Maryland's definitely a sanctuary state. Most of its counties operate on that same level as well.
Well, you're right that he rejected the idea that a statewide policy for local jurisdictions to cooperate with the federal government. He says there is none. But in fact, he's completely ignorant of the law because he's saying if it's federal law, we have nothing to do with it. But yet federal and state laws do marry on many occasions. I mean, my state alone here in South Carolina, we've got sheriffs that are very, very pro-law. And if they come across with an illegal alien, and they hold them for detainers. Now, as a New York City cop, prior to my retirement, if you came across an illegal alien and you had to transport him to the hospital, you couldn't notify ICE. You weren't allowed to do that. I had a friend of mine back in 1989, Bob Machadi. This illegal alien was deported 3 times by an ICE agent who happens to be a friend of mine. 3 times. And this guy came back and murdered Bob Machadi on duty.
Yeah.
Because we were not allowed to do it, because New York City was a sanctuary city. And they don't understand the toll on human life that it takes.
Yeah, the social toll alone should be enough to incentivize states to actually adhere to federal law and create their own laws. There's states across the nation that have seen, that they have jurisdictions that aren't cooperating with ICE. They're not detaining. And so what they do is they create statewide laws that say you have to follow federal policy. And if you don't, you're going to lose statewide funding. That's the only way to get these jurisdictions to actually act right and follow the federal law. But a state as left-leaning as Maryland is never going to do that. And so they're just going to keep seeing these crimes go up. I believe Rachel Marin, she was just running and she was killed by an illegal alien who was deported multiple times right here in Maryland. And they're going to see their streets continue to be infiltrated with drugs and crime. And they're going to say that their hands are tied and there's nothing they can do. But there is. They could just simply adhere to federal law or even pass statewide laws that de-incentivize illegal aliens from coming to their state.
Well, before you joined FAIR, FAIR had a symposium in Nashville, Tennessee, and I went to that. And there I met a bunch of sheriffs and other police captains and whatever you want to call them, that were saying, yes, we do have cooperation. Matter of fact, you mentioned in your article, it's 8 USC 1357 that expressly permits states to enter into cooperation agreements with ICE in addition to local jurisdictions. So yes, it's already there on the books, Governor Westmore. It's there for you to have your local jurisdictions voluntarily enter. They don't need your permission.
No, not at all. They don't even have to enact statewide policies. They could just follow the federal law, but they refuse to. And I think the only way really is for another federal law to be written that deals with immigration policy that says if states aren't following, that you're going to lose federal funds. I think that, you hit them, you pull the purse strings a little bit, and that'll make them listen. It's sad that that's the only reason or way to get them to listen. It's not the death or the drugs that's happening in their local communities. It's the money, it's the funding.
And you're right. Because I believe he knows very well what he's doing, and he's not ignorant of the law. He's just plain country dumb. That's what we say down here. But you're right. You have to hit him in the pocketbook. And another way to, I guess, show the difference of what it is to be like to follow the law, existing law, which is meant to protect Americans, is to juxtapose what's happening in Delaware with something like in Florida or Texas, where we are, going after these illegals and whatnot. And crime isn't as bad as it is in a sanctuary state. I think we need to do more of that, juxtapose.
Yeah, definitely. I think Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott out of Texas, they've done a great job. In Texas, they have more border land that shares with their state than any other southern state in the nation. And they have mass illegal and legal immigration, yet their crime is still lower than Maryland. And it's because they're not incentivizing illegal aliens to stay. They're pretty hard on immigration. They're tough on it. And they create policies like Abbott recently did, where they're tracking how much things cost, how much crime there is. Texas has a really good crime, one of the only states in the nation that tracks illegal alien crime. And it really, numbers speak for themselves. And they've done everything they can to de-incentivize.
And the thing about it is the Biden-Harris administration now is trying to take credit for the lower entries of illegals into Texas, when it's Texas who took measurements to protect their borders that resulted in what, the Biden and Harris administration trying to take credit for.
Yeah, it's twofold. Yeah.
We saw that in the press conference yesterday that Trump had at the border, where Texas has been erecting their own barriers because the federal government won't do it. So the numbers are down because of Governor Abbott, not because of the Biden-Harris administration. Go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah, the numbers are down for two reasons, specifically in Texas, because they have been de-incentivizing migrants from wanting to even cross anywhere in Texas. And then secondly, it's kind of a shell game, you see, because the numbers haven't really lowered. They're just the CBP and the USCIS, they've been ushering illegal aliens to ports of entry rather than in between ports of entry. And because of that, they're playing a number game. It looks like they're lower, but the same amount are really coming in. And it seems like every other month, the current administration is enacting policies or stating that they've been looking into new policies that will incentivize more mass illegal immigration. So yeah, it's a twofold issue. One with the states working really hard to just go ahead and prevent them from coming, but then nationwide, the numbers are actually pretty much the same. They're just trying to toy with them on the website, make it look like they're lower.
But aren't they telling them now, go to a website, go to this one website, use this one app, make the appointment, and we'll help usher you in and send you whatever part of the destination you want to go. Or maybe we'll pick one out for you. So they're slipping into the fabric of our nation. And we have known terrorists entering, but we don't know where they went now.
Yeah, the CBP One app it's absolutely bizarre to me. People can, go ahead and skip the line. So once they show up at the port of entry, regardless of where, the northern border, a maritime port up the east or west coast, or the southern border, it almost streamlines the process. And rather than going through a much more intense vetting process, these people have been vetted electronically, hardly any face-to-face time with a Customs and Border Patrol agent, and then they're let in. And they're given these court dates that are years in advance sometimes. I've seen court dates all the way out to 2028, and the likelihood of them showing up is very, very, very slim.
No, and that'd be the next DACA type of way of getting their citizenship, because you couldn't stop them to begin with. They've already been here now. They've got family, they've got grandchildren, and so forth. So feel sorry for them, because they committed a crime to enter our country, and yet we're the ones that pay the penalty.
Yes. The taxpayers bear the burden they foot the bill for everything. We're the only nation I know of that incentivizes illegal aliens and make things cushiony for them once they come here. We value migrants are a protected class now. We value them more than our own citizens. We value them more than legal immigrants. We've proven time and time again that open borders policies is a humanitarian policy. They like to tout that out. They like to say, you come here because you're seeking a better life. Let's give you, we'll pay for your hospital bills. We'll give you food stamps. We'll give you driver's license. And that goes back, Curtis, to what you were saying about Texas and Florida. They're doing the exact opposite of the federal government. DeSantis will not honor a driver's license issued to an illegal alien from a different state. He's already tracking, like Texas just started doing, the tracking medical expenses, and they're doing everything in their power to do the opposite of what the federal government is. They're actually essentially doing the federal government's job. And it's a shame that the states have had to do this, but they've realized that the cost of illegal immigration on their own law-abiding tax citizens isn't fair. And so they're having to do everything opposite.
Well, it's funny because I had my Tea Party meeting on Monday, and one of my members walked up to me and he goes, "Did you hear about," and before she even finished the sentence, I pulled out the article. 24 state attorney generals petitioned the Supreme Court to hear a case out of Arizona to make sure that the registration, your voter registration, states that you are an American citizen. And it must be verified. So on our state ballot this November, that is on the ballot, the question whether or not your voter's registration must state you are a U.S. citizen, punishable by law. And the Supreme Court did rule partially in our favor. There was a small section they said we don't agree with. They sent back down to the lower courts. But basically, you do your voter registration, you must state if you're a citizen. You must state you are a citizen.
We've gone from not even requiring IDs, which was crazy in the first place, to requiring that we show that, we're legal citizens. And it's it's absolutely insane that we've even had to go this far. I mean, we're not doing this because of no reason. We're doing this because of the sheer amount of voter fraud there is. Typically by people, illegal aliens, they tend to steal people's identities when it comes to voting. People who are dead, who are still on voter rolls, and their identities get stolen. And it's something that we definitely have to look out for. And it makes you question the integrity of all of our elections, essentially. I mean, and so this law is actually, I hope it sees fruition because it's needed. We should show IDs. We show IDs before we get into a concert venue. You have to show an ID if you want to get into the DNC, but you don't have to show an ID to vote. So it makes no sense.
You got to show ID to cash a check. And we hear, but they're disenfranchised. They can't get IDs. Well, Nikki Haley, when she was governor here of South Carolina, said, I challenged that. And she offered free transportation. And we were hearing something like somewhere between 5 and 6 million people will be disenfranchised. They can't vote. And I think it was just a couple of thousand people actually used the ride to DMV. And so she proved it wrong. She proved it absolutely wrong.
Yeah, I think that's some of the most backwards racism towards minorities is thinking that they don't have the ability to go get a transportation, to go get an ID, to go vote. We're acting like certain minorities are so disenfranchised, and it's just not true. It's actually really rude to even consider that as an option, I think.
Yeah, and the left always like to tout that walls and borders don't work, but they have them around the DNC. And
double barrier.
And their places,
double.
Their places of residency are protected by walls.
The irony.
The irony. But, I love what Texas is doing. They're going after the article you wrote about Greg Abbott going after the Medicare bills. Not Medicare, Medicaid. Get it correct, Dan. Medicaid. Because the illegal aliens are using it up, and the state is paying the Medicaid bill, and they're saying, wait a minute, this is a federal government problem. We have to do a quarterly report, and we're billing the federal government to reimburse us for those costs. They're doing everything by the book.
Yeah, illegal aliens.
Imagine if all the other states do the same thing.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. That'd be amazing. But yeah, Texas, I mean, they've been bearing the brunt of the migrant crisis for years now. I mean, illegal aliens cost the state, as in the state taxpayers, over $13.4 billion last year. And that includes healthcare. And so, yeah, what Governor Abbott basically has said when he passed this law, which is very similar to DeSantis's law out in Florida, is that, hey, I know the federal government and the states, we share the burden of, people who are uninsured or people who are illegal aliens, their health care for emergency services. But that was under the understanding that you would be enforcing federal law, that the borders would be closed, and that you wouldn't be enticing migrants into my state. So now, because we don't have that understanding anymore, you need to pay up. And that's what he's doing. He's making the Texas Health and Human Services Commission collect information starting in November, and then starting in March of next year, they're going to have to report that information quarterly. And then in January of 2026, they're supposed to be reporting annually, not only to the governor, but the lieutenant governor, as well as the Speaker of the House. And it can, essentially all that information will be aggregated, and then they'll send a big bill to the federal government for not upholding their half of the promise.
I love it. I absolutely love it. But Chip Roy also has been putting his finger into the pie, and I love this guy. I really do love this guy. He wrote to the police chief of the San Antonio Police Department asking for statistics. And I know once I mentioned to you, you're going to look it up. I know that. But he was asking for specific numbers in dealing with crimes involving illegal aliens, and also with certain migrant, what do you call them? Housing centers.
Yeah,
what do you find out about this?
Yeah, that's it's interesting. I'm sure he hasn't gotten a response, and I'm sure he'll get one he doesn't like eventually. That's why it's really important that states follow Texas's lead, and the Texas Department of Public Safety tracks crime, and they list off if they're illegal or if they're legal, and that's something that every state should do. But there's very few that do, and I hope Mr. Roy gets the statistics that he wants, and I hope he can use them in such a way that highlights what's going down in Arizona, because they have a rampant amount of crime too.
You mean Texas?
Texas.
DeBrois, Texas. Well, I found it very funny because right after reading that article, then there was the shooting at the gate, the Army base gate. And we've never heard much about that afterwards. And it just seemed very, very strange because of its close vicinity to that migrant housing center, where there has been a lot of police action on there, responding to crimes with gangs and everything else. And I'm wondering if they were just testing the water to see how much they can get away with.
It is interesting. Usually they give themselves away by not giving out information. If the names and the ages aren't released and they're really close to a border or they're close to a base that's been dealing with border-related issues, a lot of the time, just like when illegal aliens murder people just for going for a jog in the middle of the night, they wait forever to release their names because they give it away. They wait forever to release their age because it gives away the demographic. So yeah, I've been looking into that, and I haven't seen anything yet. It's very hush hush, and that says more than they probably want it to say.
Man, up on fairus.org, you have underneath there, it's titled "Illegal and Legal Immigration and the Economy," and you actually on your website that you work with them on, it basically tells you a lot of what's going on within the United States. And recently, work numbers were released, and I spoke about this about a couple of shows ago, and they were bragging that 1.1 million jobs were created for foreign workers. And then in the next sentence, they said 1 million U.S. workers lost their jobs. I found it very curious. Those numbers were so close, and yet they're claiming that 808,000 jobs, just suddenly the numbers were off. They really weren't created.
Yeah. I mean, the two correlate too much hand in hand. It's just obvious, and they release these numbers, and I think they always think that they're going to say something or we're going to react some way and just go with it like sheeple, but we don't, because it's obvious. You can see the holes in their arguments. And yeah, I mean, we've had mass illegal immigration. And throughout the years, a lot of legal immigration that does affect our labor market. We hire these people that have advanced degrees and they come in with visas, whether legally, and then, someone else with an advanced degree who's a citizen doesn't get that job. That's very common up in Wake County, up in North Carolina, places with hospitals and research triangles, things like that. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got illegal immigration where people are coming in for low wage jobs. Think line cooks and construction and agricultural. And then we don't see those jobs filled by legal citizens. And so it's two sides of the same coin that always affect the labor market. And the left and pro-immigrant, illegal or legal, organizations love to tout that, migrants pay so much into the tax base, that they cost less than they consume. And it's just not true. I mean, they're coming here. Our waits in hospitals are forever long. The schools, English is almost like the second language now. And you've got the job market. I mean, it's so hard for people to find jobs. I live right outside of DC in Maryland, and average regular jobs are extremely filled up right now by migrants. And I see it day in and day out. I mean, there's nobody who's driving cars around DC anymore, or food service workers or your chefs. They're almost always migrants, and it's a shame. But yeah, I mean, the more people that come in, there's only so many U.S. citizens that can grab jobs. And if we've got a whole population of 40 plus states that have come in illegally, U.S. citizens aren't going to be able to find jobs.
No, they're not. I'm telling people, go to fairus.org, check it out, because there's so much great articles, great information, and your fair, beautiful face.
Thank you.
Well, we always welcome you back, Hannah. You got my cell phone number. So you do a great job over there. And it's always a pleasure to work with you guys over there. I enjoy it so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
All right, Hannah.
Hannah Davis, check her out at fairus.org. We've got the missing Typhoon Lou. We're down to our last 9 minutes.
Apologize for my tardiness, but I got we had a death in one of our leaders and organizations' wives, and I had to attend to that. So my apologies.
Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, no, our deepest condolences, because we had Captain Bunbridge with him, and briefly, Curtis and I touched on this veteran issue that you brought up to his attention about the separation pay, and we were discussing that. So we've got just a few minutes if you want to address it before we head off to the wild blue yonder.
Well, I appreciate this. Listen, appreciate all you guys do over there, C.S. Bennett and Anna. You guys did a wonderful job in what you do getting the word out. But it's a shame that we live in the greatest state in the world, and our veterans are being, I would say, mistreated below an illegal citizen. And I find that very bothersome when I see folks out there that the vets are not getting the what they deserve is in terms of they're willing to sacrifice their lives for this country, and to see them being turned away for their benefits and the things that I'm seeing out there. Now, the good news at the assemblies, what we do here, I like to share with you that as of to date, we have actually helped out over 48 veterans assist in getting their benefits so far to date. And that's coming right straight from Dr. Viek. That's his report he gave to me here last week, here a couple days ago, actually. And also 31 of those claims are for disability filed with the through the VFW. 11 appeals were done of disability ratings and decisions that are filed with the VFW, as well as 4 applications with their spouse's healthcare coverage through Champa. So, but we're doing our best we can do. And I'm not sure if you're familiar what we do here in the regarding our community development here. We get veterans off the streets. We get them cleaned up, give them their benefits, and we get them a job. So, and as of to date, we've gotten 13 veterans jobs in the community here to help them get on their feet. So,
all right.
Wow. I mean, our AMVETs, they turn around, they collect clothing and everything else, help them get food and stuff. And I've seen where job fairs have come through to try to help veterans get that. I've also talked with Concerned Veterans for America that also do a lot of that good work too. So I'm glad that, people are stepping up to the plate, because we're spending so much attention on assisting illegal aliens, and we leave our men and women behind that gave their all.
Heartbreaking. And I totally agree with that. And some of these concerns, citizens and veterans, these are our coalition partners, and we all got to come together as a country and as a community to help make a difference.
Well, is there like a chapter or something that people locally can join to see if they can go also help and assist with veterans?
We have what we call a chapter in 17 counties right now. As of this weekend, we'll probably have another 2 more, and probably it looks like another 25 here total, or a total of 25 here, hopefully by the end of before the election. So,
and that's assemblies, right? Assemblies.
Yes, the assemblies. Yeah, we're setting up chapters this week, and we're going down to Indian River County, just going up there. We're doing Marin County. Looks like we're going to send one up there. We got folks that have been begging for us to come up there, and we have Lee County, Leon County. We have about 7 in the pipeline we're working with right now. As soon as they tell me they got their 20 people ready to go, we go up there and we give them a chapter so they get operating right away. And within our organization, we have what we call our community development. It's one of our pillars. I don't know if you can see it over my shoulder here. And that's where the veterans program is in that we take care of, as well as we feed the needy and the poor too. We help feed. Last year we had 165,000 pounds of food here in Central Florida. We distributed through the poor and the needy. And one thing also too, during the holidays, I tell folks is, hunger does not discriminate whether you're Republican or Democrat. So we come together even with the Democrats, and we help feed the poor during the holidays.
That's absolutely awesome. For those that are outside of the state of Florida, my recommendation is check out your local AMVETs and VFW halls. See if there's something that you can volunteer for. You don't have to be someone that served in the military. You may have a relative that served. For me, on my half, it was for my father that served. Some were married. Some have the children that served. That you can become an associate member of those organizations, and then also help with the veterans and your local church. Our local church goes out to the street too. And we do a rotation. Each week, a different church takes up the post, and we share it. We all share it. Lou, I'm sorry we didn't have more time with you.
It's okay. Next time we'll roll. And just like I say, things happen. And when you're a leader, you just got to sometimes you got to pick your priorities and stuff. But I would love to come back and join you guys again here and be part of God's army. Let's do what we do best, and that's serve the Lord and help our communities.
And our prayers go with the family of the woman that had passed away.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do, Lou. God
Thank
bless.
you. God bless.
All right.
All right, Curtis, that's all we got for today. We're down to our last few minutes. I got to remember who the heck we got for next weekend. I mean, we are now booked.
Ambassador Stanley
Escudero and Mark Tapscott, followed by next month. We're already booked into next month. And we have Caitlin Wheeler and Olivia Kroshek with the Riley Gaines Center at Leadership Institute. And I think we're starting to go into the 13th. And the 13th, again, we have Mark Tapscott, and we don't have someone else after that. So we're actually booked up until the first half of the 13th, September 13th.
Okay.
So show's getting popular. I want to thank everyone for giving us all their love and support. And we'll be back here next week, same bat time, same bat station. Right, Curtis?
Right, 100% right.
So I say good night and God bless.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. For the friends we have loved and lost, and we still believe in God we trust, in the freedom our forefathers granted us. We know it's not too late to save America. Save America. Save America. Together we can save America.